All right, everybody, what is going on? I'm going to take a little bit of a break here from 9th anniversary content because JP is in their TANABATA celebration, and it was announced that they're getting a new LR full power JIREN. The data download from the time I'm recording this should be in about an hour, and then he will be, quote, in-game. Not actually, like he won't be live in game, but he'll be in the database. People will you'll start seeing like private server showcases, Twitter clips, things like that. And then we'll also have the countdowns available for when exactly this guy is going to drop. Typically, I would expect it to be, so I'm recording this at 8 o'clock Central on the 16th. I would expect him to show up at 3 a.m. on the 18th is when I... Excuse me. 1 second. Oh, sorry. I was reaching for the pause button. I couldn't hit it in time, but that's when I would expect JIREN to come out. Now, obviously, I can't read Japanese here, so I'm going to pull up some translations here in a minute from Dokkan, and we're going to go over this guy. If you are interested, this is a calc video. I do already have them on Twitter. I posted them up this morning, so if you are curious what his stats are going to be looking like, I do already have those up. You can go check out my Twitter profile. I got them there, so you don't have to listen to me ramble on for the rest of this video. Go check them out. Otherwise, stay here. We'll do like a kit breakdown, and then we'll go into the calcs. So anyway, here are the translations from Luka Dokkan here. Here's JIREN. There he is. Look at him. Very nice. So LRAGL JIREN, probably, I guess it doesn't matter because he's super type, but I was going to say he probably could have been like STR, but I was just thinking from like a villain perspective, but it really doesn't matter because he's a super class unit. So his leader skill is really just Universal Survival Saga Key 3, HP attacking defense 200%. People have been calling this a double leader skill, but it's really not. Every character on Universe 11 is also on Universal Survival Saga. So, like, the only buff that you're really getting if you're on Universe 11 is an extra key. So, on a double JIREN team, Universe 11 characters would be starting at 8 key before anything else, and all other Universal Survival Saga units are going to be starting at 3. So, or at 6, I'm sorry, at 6. So, because, like, 2 leader skills, you would add these effects together, so it'd be 8 key or 6 key. So, it's really not that impactful. But yeah, I guess if you're on Universe 11, you get a little bit of extra keys, so sure, why not? This is kind of pointless, but whatever. Super attack effect is raises attacking defense for 1 turn, colossal damage to the enemy. That's his 12 key. His 18 key super attack greatly raises attacking defense. It's a 50% raise for 1 turn. Mega colossal damage and a high chance to stun. Pretty good super attack effects. We'll definitely take that. Passive skill. This is one of the smallest passive skills we've had in a long time, but, it's fine. Passive is key plus 8, 350% to stats at the start of turn. On the first turn, you nullify one of the targeted enemy's actions once only. So I just assume that, if you load into a fight, the first action an enemy does is going to be nullified. I assume is how that's going to work. But we'll see once it's actually in-game. I mean, that could be really powerful, potentially. Like, if a boss opens up with a super attack, you're basically just, getting rid of that, potentially. So, interesting. 50% damage reduction, 50% attacking defense when attacking. That is a multiplicative buff. 100% attack, great chance to crit, and an extra... Oh, my goodness, I can't speak. And damage reduction plus 11% when placed as the second or third attacker. So that, that's pretty good. Get a little bit of extra damage reduction in, get some extra attack. Overall, I don't think this guy is going to be a slot 1 unit anyway, so you're pretty much always going to put him in slot 2. So, I mean, that's just that's kind of them nudging you and telling you, hey, kid, put this guy in slot 2 or 3. That's kind of like Dokkan's, they're dropping hints. This right here is them dropping hints of, hey, this is where we want you to put this guy. So, we guess we can go ahead and pull up LRAGL JIREN's defense calcs now and go over those for his first phase. So let me get those pulled up. All right, so here's JIREN's calcs right here pulled up. This is his just JIREN, and then this is JIREN with 30% support from Topo. Topo does give 30% support to its special pose and I think tournament. It's Warriors of Justice. Warriors of Justice and special pose get 30% support. Jiren is on Warriors of Justice, so he does get the 30% support from Topo. So I'm just that's assuming who you would run next to this guy. His defense stat, if we go back over to this, you can see is 9125. So we take 9125 and we add 5400 to that. That's how much you get for being rainbowed. And so we'll get a defensive stat of 14525. For 55%, you take 9125 and you add 2000. And that's how you calculate their stats for the different levels of the hidden potential system, at least for 55% and rainbowed. So that's where you start. You want to start with that stat. Everything we do is going to be built on those numbers. Let's say you wanted to add equipments to this guy, by the way. You would just increase this stat, obviously. So, let's say we add an extra 1,000 defense to him. You would just add 1,000 there, and then it'll adjust your formula going forward if you set up a spreadsheet like this. So, anyway, then we have the 200% leader skill. I pretty much just do everything under 200% leaders these days, unless it comes out that a character just does not have one, or if I think it's highly impractical to run it. Let's say hypothetically a character's only 200% leader skill is Raditz. I'm probably going to do their calcs under a 170% leader, but most good characters these days are going to have a 200% leader skill. I think LR AGL Super Boo was the last character that came out and didn't have a 200% team for a really long time. So anyway, so in order to calculate for the leader skill, we take 14525 and we multiply that number by 5. So you can see A1760, that's this cell right here, A1760, and we're multiplying it by 5. The reason you multiply by 5 here is because you will have two 200% leader skills activated, which is a total boost of 400%. And then in order to include the base, which is this 14525, you have to add a 1 to that. So that's where we get the 5 from instead of multiplying by a 4. If you multiply by a 4 right here, what that would give you is actually the increase that you get from the leader skills and not your total defense, which is the 14525 plus the increase of 400%. So that's, again, why we add the 1 right there to include this base, and that gets us to 72625. That is generally better illustrated by the links. If you guys have watched my calc videos before, you know that that's my favorite line. I say that in every video. But right here, you can see that I have Shocking Speed and Tournament of Power activated with Jiren. Those are his only 2 defense links, I believe, in his base form. Tournament of Power gives 7% to stats. Shocking Speed gives 5% for a total boost of 12. And so that's where we're taking, you can see A1761, which is this cell right here, and we're multiplying it by 1.12. We get a boost of 12% from the links, which is the 0.12 right here. And then again, we are including the base of 72625 by including a 1 right there. Again, that's what that 1 is doing. If we were to just multiply 72625 by 12%, that would give us 8,000 defense or 9,000, something along those lines. And obviously, our defense doesn't go down to 8,000. 8,000 is just the boost that we get from the links. So that's, again, why we include the 1, is because we have to include this number, not just the boost that we're getting. So then we get to his next line, which is 350% at the start of turn. This is where the calcs get slightly different between the left and the right. On the left side, it's just straight 350% defense at the start of turn. Over here on the right side, we're including the 30% support that we're getting from Topo, and so you can see that's where the defense it differs a little bit right here. So 390 rainbowed versus 366 rainbowed, a slight increase in defense right there. That does get bigger as you get more multiplicative buffs going. So you can see right here again 350% at the start of turn. That's going to be 3.5 as a decimal, but we have to include the base again. So that's why if you look right here, I have it multiplied by 4.5. Same thing here. And then in order to include the extra support of 30%, that's 0.3 as a fraction. So we add that into this number right here for 380%, represented as 4.8 as a whole number in order to make this formula work. So this is what you should see from Jiren, assuming there's no other support active and you're in this scenario where you have, both of his links activated and, there's either no support or only 30% support. If you had more support, you would just adjust your decimal. So let's say instead we had 50% support up, this would go from 4.5 to just 5 because it would be 4.5 plus 0.5 equals 5. So he'd be at like 406,000 defense instead. So that's where we get that number from right there. And then, as I mentioned, he does get 50% attack and defense when attacking in his passive. And so that's where we're going to take this 366,030, and we're going to multiply that by 1.5, which is that 50% that he gets. I called this passive phase 2. This is generally whenever people say, like, oh, he has multiplicative buffs. That could be anything that falls into the second phase. So that could be evading an attack, receiving an attack, performing an attack, wind guarding, what else? I mean, those are like the main ones, right? Like dodging, guarding, getting hit, or attacking. Those are like the 4 main like things that you can do that would be considered like in the passive phase 2. I'm sure somebody could give another example in the comments, but that's what that passive phase 2 stands for. It's basically anything that's not start of turn. So it's, like I said, when attacking, when dodging, when receiving an attack, when performing an attack, things like that. So then if you get an 18 key super attack, Jiren gets another 50% defense. So that's where we take this number right here, multiply it by 1.5. And so if you only get one super attack with this guy, which is going to be fairly common because this guy does not have any built-in additionals, you're going to cap out at 823,000 defense with no support, with 61% damage reduction. So that's going to be a little bit iffy against some of the big boss super attacks. Against normals, you should generally be okay. Just like as an example, if a boss is doing like, 1.5 million damage on a normal, well, you're going to cut off, 61% of that immediately from his damage reduction. So you would multiply this by 0.39. And so then you only have to have enough defense to tank 585,000, which he would have, right? So with 823,000 defense, I mean, how much damage would we have to take in order to actually take damage? You'd have to divide this by 0.39, right? So, yeah, you'd have to start getting into taking 2.1 million damage before you started seeing anything over double digits. So, like let's say you have a boss that does 3 million damage, right? You would multiply that by 0.39 for the damage reduction, and then you would take the 1.1, subtract out the defense, and so, like, Jiren's only going to be taking 350k from a 3 million damage super attack, assuming, like, it's a class neutral type is the same, so if it's, like, a super class AGL unit, he would take that much damage, so... Anyway, he is going to be pretty solid defensively. I would say probably go full dodge on this guy just because, like, there are going to be some of these big boss super attacks, especially if they, like, lower defense or anything like that are going to be able to catch this guy. But overall, he's going to be a very solid defensive unit. It's going to be a little bit of a different story in slot 1. This is where I was saying, like, he's not really going to be a great slot 1 unit because he actually only has 50% damage reduction activated. So if we took this number right here, divided by 0.5, it's he can only tank like 730,000 in his base form before he does any super attacks. So, like he gets a ton of defense on super attack is what I'm getting at there. If you do happen to get an additional super attack, you would take. This is where our formula kind of gets a little bit different. So you can see both of these are multiplying by A1764. Both of these lines right here are taking into account this number. And you can see this is for 1.5. That's because he gets 50% on his 18 key. On his 12 key super attack, he raises for 1 turn, which is 30%. And so it would go to 1.8. And so you would cap out at 988,281, or with 30% support up, 1,054,000. So a double super attack could be pretty potent for this guy. But, it's still kind of iffy, right? Like, if you're looking at it from the perspective, how should I build Jiren? It's like, let's say you give your character 25 additional versus 25 dodge, right? If you give your character 25 dodge, then they just have a 25% chance not to take any damage from, like, a super attack. This character is going to be fine against pretty much all normals that are in the game at the moment. I mean, I can't think of any normals that would actually do damage to this guy off the top of my head. I'm sure somebody could think of something, but this guy's not going to take damage from normals. The question is he going to take damage from supers? And, you have a 25% chance to potentially dodge that super attack. if you go for 25% additional, people will tell you, oh, the point values are doubled, right? You have a 50% chance to get that additional. The thing is yes, you do have a 50% chance to get that additional, but that additional has a 50% chance to be a super or a 50% chance to be a normal. So really, you still only have a 25% chance to get that hidden potential super, and even if you get it, you're not necessarily guaranteed to tank. Now, there is the possibility that you KO the boss potentially on a guaranteed or on an additional super attack like that, but still, you're gambling a 25% chance not to take any damage versus a 25% chance to still possibly take damage, maybe KO the boss. Like, there's more risk associated with the additional than there is with the dodge. With the dodge, it's either you dodge it and you win, or you don't, and, maybe you do, maybe you don't. With the additional, it's either you get the additional and you could still, like, you still have the same outcome, like, no matter what. So it's just like, you guys kind of get the idea of what I'm going for here, maybe. If you don't, let me know, but it's just like a 25% chance not to take damage or a 25% chance to maybe still take damage. Like, that's kind of where you're at with your two options of how to build this guy. I probably wouldn't go for crit, being as he's got the great chance to crit in his passive. So like you clearly either want to go additional or dodge for this guy. That's really what you want to do. All right, now on to his standby. His standby condition is really, really, really good. It's basically just his next appearance. So, like, you get Jiren, and then if you float him off, if you, just keep him on rotation no matter what, the next turn that you have Jiren, you will be able to stand by with them. So if you get him on turn 1, you can get it on turn 3. If you get him on turn 2, you can get it on turn 4. If you get him on turn 3, you can get it on turn 5. So it's a very, very, very easy condition, which is awesome. And then it lasts for 5 turns, which is really powerful because he becomes really good in his standby mode. So he can't attack. He gets 350% defense at the start of turn. He gives 3 key support to all allies. Like, already, that's really good, especially on a team like Super Bosses, which doesn't really have a ton of cohesion. And he gets 50% damage reduction with an additional damage reduction of 11% per key sphere obtained. So if you get, basically 4 key spheres with this guy, you're going to be at, 94% damage reduction. If you get 5, you're just not taking damage at all. But you get 3 key spheres with this guy and you still have 83% damage reduction. Like, you're not taking damage anywhere with this guy, whatever he's in his standby, unless you get, like, really, really screwed and you only get, like, 1 orb. So, and then additional defense plus 100% when receiving an attack. I mean, that's fine. That just means, like, as long as the first attack doesn't KO him, he's just going to become, like, impervious after that with all of his other damage reduction. Randomly changes non-key sphere. Wait. Randomly changes non-key spheres into key spheres. What does that mean? Randomly changes non-key spheres into key spheres. Maybe that's like a translation error. I don't know. We'll find out whenever the thing drops, but non-key spheres. Hang on. Okay, I looked up a translation for this. It is randomly transforms one of the attribute, so one of the type key spheres, except for the AGL key spheres, into a evasive key orb. Is that? No way he changes key spheres into int. I bet it's he changes a random, like, type key sphere into an AGL key sphere is probably what it is. So that way it's easier for him to get his damage reduction, but that's what that's doing. Attack and defense plus 70%. No, hang on, that's not right. I was just looking at this. It's only attack. This part down here is only attack. So attack plus 70% to all allies for 2 turns when this character obtains a key sphere as the second or third attacker. You probably don't want to go for that. If it was attack and defense, there could probably be an argument for it. But this guy is going to be such a slot 1 lock that I don't know that you really want to go for that extra attack support. Maybe, potentially, but I don't think I would go for that. I think I would just put this guy in slot 1 because I think him locking down slot 1 is going to be a lot more valuable than just getting a little bit of extra damage for 2 turns. But you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. Now, I didn't do calcs for his standby mode just because, I mean, you guys can kind of look at this and agree with me that he's going to be pretty much invincible. So, you can let me know if you disagree, but, like, it doesn't really matter what his defense is in standby because he's not taking damage. So, anyway, on to his final mode right here. Full power Jiren, his 12 key now greatly raises attack and raises defense for 1 turn. So I guess that's a 30% raise right there. And then massively raises attack and raises defense for 1 turn, mega colossal damage, and stuns the enemy. I think I messed up my calcs. Hang on. All right, I fixed them real quick. So whenever I read this morning, I thought this said greatly raises attack and defense for 1 turn. So I thought that this was a 50% raise, but it looks like these are both 30% raises now. But massively raises attack. This guy's going to be hitting really hard. Key plus 11, attacking defense plus 400%, 60% damage reduction at the start of turn. On your first turn, you get a scouter and an additional 11% damage reduction, so that's 71% damage reduction. You get an additional 111% defense, attack and defense when attacking. Great chance for critical hits with an additional critical chance plus 11% per super attack launched. I believe that will like infinitely stack. So after 3 super attacks, you're going to have guaranteed crits. An additional 100% attack. Attacks are guaranteed to hit, and guaranteed critical hits whenever key meter is 24. So, like, this is kind of dumb, like, that they're giving him, like, a high chance to crit, but then also, like, guaranteed crits, like, right here. One of these should have been an additional. Like, if this was a guaranteed additional at 24 key instead, I think Jiren would have been, like, even better. But maybe they were worried about him being broken, but, like, I don't know why, considering all the other busted units that they've dropped this year. And then an additional attack plus 50% when this character receives a super attack from the enemy. So, yeah, Jiren's going to be pretty good. Transformed, he's going to be really solid. So here we go. Here are the calcs. What I corrected from the ones that I posted this morning is that this is only 60% right here and not 80. Again, I thought it was greatly raised attack and defense on his 12 key, but it is just normally raised. So both of these are now 30. So that's actually kind of a downgrade on the defense side of his super attack effect, but they made up for it by over doubling this part of his passive, which is probably going to be more important. I mean, as you can see, his defense numbers are a lot higher than they were originally. So again, same basic calcs all the way through up to this point. Right here, we do have a small change. Instead of it being 350% at the start of turn, now it's 400. So that's where we're multiplying by 5 right here. You get 111% on attack in your passive. And so that's multiplied by 2.11 and then 1.3 for the 18 key. If you get a double super attack, it'd be 1.6. So I don't really know where you're taking damage with this guy once he gets into his full power state. But, you know, if there's like a boss that nukes your defense, he could definitely take damage from them. He will be susceptible to that. But yeah, Jiren's going to be really good. That's my analysis, is Jiren's going to be pretty solid. I don't know if I could recommend you summon for him, but he is going to be a Universal Survival Saga leader, and Universal Survival Saga right now is really good. You know, it's like we just got UI Goku, we got the Golden Frieza in 17, we got the 17 in Universe 7, the AGL UI Goku, Evolution Blue Vegeta, Skinny Boo looks pretty solid. We have Topo. Ribrianne can still have some niche usage depending on the fight. So we just have a lot right now for Universal Survival Saga over on JP. So it is a pretty poppin' team. And if you enjoy running it, you know, this guy does seem like he's going to be a really solid addition to that team, as well as super bosses. So let me know what you guys are thinking about Jiren. Again, I'll just zoom out a little bit right here so that you guys can see both of the calcs up at the same time. And you guys can just give me your thoughts. So again, these were already on Twitter. So if you don't want to listen to me ramble on for however long this video was, 24 minutes, then feel free to just go follow me over there. See these when they come out. And yeah, you can just see them right here. So again, thank you guys again so much for watching. Again, slight correction on this calc right here. This is going to be 60%, not 80%. I misread that this morning. So you know, that's why I do the videos, right? It gives me a chance to do slight corrections like that, but I don't think double supers are going to be super common for this guy anyway. I don't think that that's how you should build this guy. You guys may disagree. Let me know down below. I really appreciate it, and I'll catch you guys next time.